Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I know it's been more than a month since I posted a full-length video on YouTube, and that's because I have been super busy with my university exams, but they're thankfully over and I'm ready to focus on my art once again. For today's video, I wanted to recreate one of my own painting that actually went viral on YouTube and TikTok, but I personally wasn't a fan of just because it didn't turn out how I wanted it to. The colors were muddy, which I didn't like, and it was also because of the sketchbook I was using, which was barely 140 GSM, because of which it wasn't able to handle too many layers of paint, and that's why I decided to paint it once again, but with better paper. So I used 100% cotton hot pressed watercolor paper by Lana Aquarelle, just because it is my favorite paper to paint with gouache on. The color shift on this paper is also much lesser than some of the other watercolor papers I have used, and it handles washes of paint really well without curling up as well. I will link down the art supplies that I'm using for this painting in the description box so you guys can check it out if you're interested. I've seen a lot of artists start with more transparent initial layers with gouache, and that's totally fine, and I myself tend to do that sometimes just because it's easier to build gouache up that way. But I also like to just start blocking the colors like we do with oil paints instead of working as per the consistency. I start with the thickest consistency of gouache and work from there. This is when I already know where I want to go with my painting, but if you prefer to work differently than any of these methods, then it's completely up to you, as there's no wrong when it comes to art. In all my paintings, be it watercolor or gouache, I like to keep two contrasting colors on my palette apart from white and black. Like in this one, I have this bluish purple for shadows and peachy orange for the blush and other midtones. And using these two main colors, like to base of the whole painting to make it look more put together. But for this particular painting, I kept two different shades of the blue reserved just for her hair and background, and I also used one of that blue to show variance in her skin tone just so it doesn't look too plain. And the whole painting is kind of more blue leaning, which I love so much about it, and I used a reference from Pinterest for this, which I will leave in the description box in case you want to use the same one, as it is such a beautiful picture to use for painting purpose. also want to apologize about my head being in the frame again and again. I hope it was not bugging you too much, even though I know it's annoying. But I just have this bad habit of being too close to my sketchbook while painting, and I'm sure many artists can relate to that. And for this painting, I also want to paint the iris very smoothly, just because I think it would look very pretty and doll-like. And also because the iris is this very bright blue color with a black as pupil and other shadows that are formed by the upper eyelid and even corners of the iris to signify more depth. I also know that using black in your art is kind of frowned upon, but I just find it much easier to achieve those darkest values with black. It just makes the task much simpler for me, and it's just a personal choice. Gouache is such a challenging medium for me, especially when I get back to it after a break. I kind of always feel surprised by the color shifts that I see with gouache. And while we are talking about gouache, I know that maintaining its consistency is also a task for beginners, especially when using gouache, student grade gouache, as they're much harder to reactivate, and keeping that original thick consistency once they're dried is very difficult. And for this issue, I recommend using paints out of tubes instead of tubs like those jelly gouache ones, as the tubs are usually exposed to the air more and tend to dry much faster, whereas tubes are sealed and you can squeeze out fresh paint every time you need, which makes mixing colors and maintaining the consistency you want that much easier. But I think color shift is something that artists have to work around with, just because there's not much cure to it. But I have recently found out that the watercolor papers with cotton in them cause a lot more color shift than the regular cellulose papers, so it also differs from paper to paper. I guess you will just have to experiment and find out which one works the best for you, as I have not found the one for me yet, but I'm still on the search for it, so hopefully one day I will be able to find my holy grail gouache paper. Anyway, I'm going to leave you guys to this process video, and please let me know in the comment section if you guys enjoyed it, and see you next time.